it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and today I'm here to share a few tips with you about project organization and efficiency. I have a disclaimer with this post. I have actually learned a lot of these things from different women who've taken quilting classes from me over the years. That's one of the things I've really loved about classes is how we all learn from each other. And it's just been some of the things that I've learned over the years I've now put into practice for my own use, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of those tips with you here today. The tips I'm going to share today really apply to whether you're just sewing a project at home or whether you're taking a class and taking all your supplies to another place to sew. But I feel like it's just as important to use these tips for efficiency with your projects at home when you're sewing at home. So the first thing I always recommend is that you read the pattern from beginning to finish. I know a lot of pattern writers say that at the beginning of their patterns, and we don't always like to do it. We are so excited to dig in and start sewing that we don't do that, but it really helps. I learned that from my days sewing for other designers before I was designing fabric with my daughter. I would do sewing for other people, and I was so concerned about getting everything just perfect that I would take the time to read the pattern the night before I began a project and read it all the way through. I feel like I learned a lot by doing that. So that's the first thing to do, is to read the pattern all the way through and just kind of get a sense, even if you don't understand all of the techniques with the quick reading, just kind of understand everything that you need. The next step would be to gather everything that you need for that project in one place. So your fabrics, the rulers, any specialty notions you might need, marking pencil if you have things that you're going to mark, and any special things. I've just kind of got an example. This is one of my long-term projects that I'm working on, and it's the Village Houses quilt. And this is actually a free pattern now. Moda, at the beginning of the pandemic, and Carrie Nelson, who wrote the pattern, they decided to provide this to everyone for free since we were all at home. So I'll link to this free pattern for you as well. But this is something I've been working on for several years, and I just keep it in a basket in my sewing room. And so it kind of works to illustrate this technique of keeping everything together. In the basket, I have the pattern. And since I've made a lot of these blocks now, I'll actually pull out my stack. This is just one of those projects I kind of don't want to finish because I am making them from all of our fabric collections, and every time we get a new collection I think, oh, I need to make blocks from that collection. So anyway, these blocks go back for a few years, but I keep them all in this basket. And I have the pattern in there in case I need it. And I also have just kind of like a shortcut note on the back, because I've made enough of the blocks now that by following these notes I can actually make houses without opening up the pattern. And this is something I always suggest. If you're working on a project, maybe just take a little notepad and make a few notes about just some of the sizes you might be cutting regularly, or some of the steps that you might need extra clarification on. Sometimes it's easier to put it in your own words than read the pattern. So I keep the pattern in there. I also, Stitch Supply Co. did a little printable where you could color in all the houses that you'd finished, and so I have that in there too. So I am past the halfway, or right at the halfway I think, with my project. I've been using this Fit to be Geese large ruler to do my roof sections. It just seems to make it a little bit easier for me, and so I keep that in here as well. I'm really not using this for any other project right now, so it stays in there. And then also what I've done is I did make some extra roof sections that I'll mix with other fabric collections. So I've got those in there too. Now if this were not a scrappy project, I would have all of the fabrics in here as well. So, but since this is a scrap bin project, I kind of just have the blocks and everything together. But you can use whatever container you want. A lot of people you can use a typical shoebox, plastic shoebox, put everything for that project together They also make these nice cases where I'm sure that you've seen. This is an art bin case with a handle, and this is actually a work in progress that I haven't started yet. It's a sampler quilt, but I do, and it was a block of the month. So I've got everything in here when I'm ready to begin it. I've got all the patterns and fabrics. But if I were taking a class, this would be great because I could just take this handle and carry it. A lot of people like to make, fabric bins to store their projects in. And so this is another good idea that you can use. But whatever you use, choose something so that you can keep everything for that project all together. Okay, the next thing I'm going to suggest for project efficiency, and this you're going to do before you cut everything out, is make a test block. Make one test block, and I've got a couple ideas for that. If you know you have plenty of fabric for the project you're working on, go ahead and use your actual fabric for your test block. If you're concerned that you might not have any extra, make it out of something else, but always make your test blocks out of that fabric so that later you can make a scrappy quilt with all of your test blocks from your projects. So you could use Christmas fabrics for all of your test blocks, or red, white, and blue fabrics for your test blocks. Or if you have a favorite designer, you could always use their fabrics for your test block, and that way your test block, scrappy blocks, would someday go into a scrappy quilt. So just something fun you might want to do. But I really think it's a good idea to make a test block before you cut everything out so that you can make sure that everything's going together the way it should be before you cut everything out and maybe cut something wrong or figure out a faster way to do something. I actually sewed a pattern one time, well, several times, and while making the test block I realized, I could put this block together a little bit differently, or do something different. I'm gonna change how I cut things out, or maybe I want to do it scrappy, so I don't want to cut it according to the pattern directions. But if you just make that test block, that'll save you a lot of heartache. Then I would suggest going ahead and cutting out your whole quilt. It really is nice to have everything cut out so that whether your sewing time is short or long, that you have everything that you need. You don't have to stop and cut sashings or borders or background squares or anything. So after you've made a test block, then I say go for it and cut everything out, and that'll help you be really efficient with your time down the road. Okay, I have a couple more tips for project efficiency. One of them is I already shared with you. I have like a little note for myself in the back of the pattern. Leave yourself notes, especially if you know you're going to put it away for a long time or even a short time and you might forget. Just leave yourself a note, something that you found while you've been working on it that seems to help, or a tip that you realized while you were doing it. Leave yourself a note. You'll appreciate it when you pull that project out to work on it again. And then another tip for efficiency when working on projects, and this is kind of a pressing tip, but I noticed that some people, they're so excited to get to sew that they forget to press. So make sure you press after every seam, every section of your block, so that it just really helps. And I know it's sometimes tempting to make the whole block and then go press all of the different seams at the end. But if you press as you go, it actually will help you be more efficient and help you to see if there's anything that's out of place right when it happens, and not after you have the whole block together. So I hope some of these tips are helpful to you as you work on projects, whether at home or to get them ready to take to a class. I feel like if we kind of just do a little basic research before we begin, we can just move more quickly through our projects and be more efficient with our time. So hopefully some of these tips will help you, and so that you can do that and make even more projects, right? That's what we all want to do, make more quilts. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll press the like button and share with a friend. And thanks so much for stopping by.